There is so much about our culture, about our history, about our ancestors that we need to know. But the kids don't know. And it's not their fault. No one is teaching it to them. So I thought that, as Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. Okay. So if I think here's a problem, maybe I should try and create a solution.
Got it.
So the entire idea is to have children's books which speaks about our history, but in a relaxed, fun way. The Secret 7 or Famous 5.
Yeah.
But it's not a mystery. It's actually history that you're learning through it.
Yeah.
And it's the first of a series. You'll learn various different aspects about India that you should know. Like I said, the Great Indian Resistance, or the fact that India was the trading hub of the ancient world, which we are not taught. And you learn it through stories, right? So it's a fun book. That's what this is. Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian History Quiz.
You know, you've said oftentimes preserving the fire, now worshipping the ashes. I love the line. But I want to focus a little bit on the ashes if we can. What kind of the way you've done research, when you've done research, what were the ashes of India, Indian civilization? You know, how close were we to the end?
Yeah, you know, there's this line, I put it in one of my books. There's a book my sister and I wrote, Bhavna Didi and I, that maintaining traditions and civilization is about the preservation of fire, not the worship of ashes. And links to something Milan Kundera had also written, that the challenge of civilization is the challenge of, I'm paraphrasing, challenge of remembering against forgetting. Because the very nature of life, the very nature of challenges that a civilization will face is to force us to forget. Right? There are so many cultures across the world that have been rewritten. If you go to Greece today, I don't know if you've been to Greece.
I have.
You travel around there.
Just Mykonos, so not full Greece, but...
Yeah, Mykonos is in Greece. But I'm saying real Greece, right?
Yeah.
There are temples of Athena, for example, right?
Yeah.
I, as an idol worshipper, felt a connection there. There were Greeks with me for whom it was just a tourist spot. It's their civilization, their ancestors, but they were reformatted.
Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt. I'd done this experiment. My wife and I had gone to Egypt a year and a half back. And I did this experiment. I was randomly asking people, what did the ancient Egyptians call Egypt? It's clearly not Egypt, okay? Egypt is the anglicization of a Greek word, Egyptos, right? No one gave the right answer. They gave Misr, which is wrong actually, that's based on an Aramaic and then Arabic word. The actual word is Kem. The only one who gave the right answer was a university professor, right? You expect him to know, right? But if you ask Indians today, what did our ancestors call India? Everyone will give the correct answer. Bharat, right? That was our name 5,000 years ago. That was our name 7,000 years ago. That is the name today, our name for ourselves, right? That's what reformatting is in many other cultures. We've not been reformatted, but we came close to, as you put it so evocatively, you know, being converted into ashes. We came very close to it in the last 1,000 years. And I think the worst of that phase was probably the 17th century, right? Mid or late 16th to the mid 17th century. We came this close to being wiped out. It had happened to Zoroastrian Persia as well, around the 8th, 9th century. They didn't collapse within just a few decades. They lost, but they fought for 100, 200 years. Then there was this phase where the fire just went out, right? It's happened to all, like happened in Egypt and so many times, right? When the Ptolemies essentially gave up. We were this close to being wiped out in the 17th century. We had done a kind of partial reconquista twice already. For 1,000 years, foreign invaders came.
Correct.
Right? There was a partial reconquista before the Ghoris came, what is called the Delhi Sultanate. At that time, we reconquered most of our land. Then what are called the Delhi Sultans, they were also foreigners,
Yeah.
Turks.
Yeah.
Right?
And that umbilical cord to Turkey stayed, I think, for most of their.
They were Turks.
Yeah.
We call them Turks. They
Correct.
call themselves Turks.
Turks, yeah.
Okay. This thing that history books tell us that, you know, it was the Islamic invasion where Indian Muslims weren't a part of the ruling elite.
They weren't.
They weren't.
Yeah.
They were as oppressed as Indian Hindus.
Yeah.
Those were all foreigners. They didn't look like Ranveer Singh or Hrithik Roshan. To us, they would have looked Chinese.
Yeah.
They weren't Chinese. They were actually Central Asians. They were Turks. They were foreigners.
Yeah.
They didn't speak Urdu. Urdu is our language. They would have spoken Turkic or Persian.
Yeah.
But essentially, by the end of the Delhi Sultanate, again there was a reconquista. Vijayanagar, various other kingdoms that started fighting back. Then again Vijayanagar was destroyed, if you remember, Battle of Talikota.
Correct.
And then a military genius that the Turks were blessed
Yeah.
with, Akbar, right? And he ruled for a long period, 50, 60 years. Akbar was relatively liberal,
Yeah.
but his descendants were not. And he was such a military genius that he wiped out many of the centers of resistance.
In many ways, I think his liberalism came from his military genius. I think he understood the
He
value
understood,
of.
yeah, he understood the value,
And
yeah.
the scale of the conquest.
Correct. And-
I've, kind of when you read about it's very difficult for me to kind of reconcile the atrocities with the liberalism unless you look at it from a military lens. So it was like the easiest way to keep the.
True, and if you look at Akbar's reign, there were two phases.
Yeah.
Till the 1570s, 1580s, he was a military genius,
Yeah.
but he was also exceptionally cruel, almost Caligula-like.
Correct.
He used to pick up
Yeah.
the wives of his noblemen, etc. And then, post that he became the Akbar, then many of us Indians recognize that.
That we're
Okay,
taught.
he became more vegetarian.
Yeah.
In fact, he became completely vegetarian. He stopped hunting, and he became what we know him as. But he was still a military genius, right? And because of the systems he set up, his descendants, even though they were not that capable, Jahangir was essentially a drugged out.
And
Right.
also, they didn't get any of his later age liberal, like they didn't get that. They were not.
they weren't.
They
No,
were
they
not. Yeah.
No, they weren't. They were debauched, they were decadent. Shah Jahan, in fact, pushed the Deccan famine while building the Taj
Yeah.
Mahal.
Yeah.
Many Indians don't know this.
I mean, part of the reason for the famine and just in general the
because
emptying of the coffers. I
yeah,
think
exactly.
a lot
he
of
kept
money,
looting money from
a lot of
Deccan
money
to
went
spend on
east.
the Taj Mahal. Yeah.
Well, one was the Taj Mahal, which I think is kind of the, but I think a lot of money also went east and back to Turkey and back to kind of
To many of their homelands
their
in Central
original
Asia,
homelands. To
they
curry
sent a lot to
favor
Arabia.
back
That's also
there.
true. But
And while the famine was happening,
so we were, and then Aurangzeb. So we were this close to being wiped out, right? And then Chhatrapati Shivaji emerges, which is why I believe he's not just a Maratha warrior. He is a reviver of the Indian way of life.
It's very interesting.
That was when we were this close to turning into ashes. And then, well,
and that
Sher Shivraj hai.
and that feeling that I get when I was reading your work and talking to you before, of I love that juxtaposition of Chhatrapati Shivaji almost as a deity, and how we kind of revived the whole thing, and then to the earlier works of looking at Shivji or anybody as almost a normal person who then kind of went up. Can you throw a little bit of light on how important Shivaji, why we needed Shivaji, why there is a reverence? I don't think young people understand why the reverence is what it is, and why the influence kind of carries. It's not Maharashtra only, right?
No,
The
it's
influence carries all the way up north, all the way up south, all the way down south, and west.
It's, for example, the Rajya Abhishek that was done for Chhatrapati
Yeah.
Shivaji Maharaj.
Yeah.
Those ceremonies hadn't been done in nearly a century.
In fact, they were not
Okay.
supposed to be done,
Yeah.
and then Yeah.
And because after the rayas of
Correct.
Vijayanagar, it hadn't been done, right? Imagine, I mean, what is a civilization if you don't know your own traditions, if you don't know your own words, if you don't know your own rituals, if you don't know your own music, right? That's how you're wiped out, right? He revived so many of those things just through his person. And what was important about his persona, which is why I think he's such a dharmic warrior. He fought very aggressively, but he fought the right way.
Yeah.
He fought the dharmic way. There were lines he would not cross. So, for example, even the records of his enemies, so the Timurid Mughal generals or the Portuguese who hated him, right? They mentioned that when they visited his war camp, it could be for a peace conference or a treaty or anything, they found no women or children as prisoners of war. Okay. Chhatrapati Shivaji did not allow his soldiers, unlike the Timurid Mughals or Portuguese, to women of the defeated army. No were allowed. Okay. He had norms that were followed. Many of us believe that the first ruler to ban slavery in pre-modern times was Abraham Lincoln. No, actually it was Chhatrapati Shivaji.
Okay.
Right? He banned it. So much so that one of his treaties with the Portuguese, actually said that if you do slavery, and he defeated them, so it was a treaty that was made in his favor. He said, we are doing this treaty, but if you do slavery in any area under my control, I will attack you again. So not only that no one can do slavery in his kingdom, he will not allow anyone else to do it either.
I don't think that's a very well-known fact.
This is what drives the history book I want to write, right? That is going to release soon, Dhruv Tara. It'll release on 27 July. But I intend this as a series, okay? Our kids need to know these things. History should not be just a list of boring dates which you ratta maro and then just puke it out on the exam paper and then bhul jao, right? History is actually supposed to teach you who we are so that you're better prepared for what we have to become, right? Those who don't learn from history will keep repeating their mistakes. There's so many inspiring parts of our history, like what I just told you about Chhatrapati Shivaji. Shouldn't we know this, right? I'm from Varanasi, my father's family. Many of the ghats that we have in Varanasi were all rebuilt by the Marathas actually. Most of them were destroyed by Aurangzeb.
That instinct that Shivaji had, that kind of equal to Akbar military general that he was. And again, when I've read about this, I think his empire was significantly larger than the Mughal Empire by the time the British came.
The Maratha Empire?
The Maratha Empire, yeah.
Mughals by the time the British came were essentially just around Delhi.
Correct.
The Marathas ruled from Attock to Cuttack, as they said, and all the way down to Tanjavur area.
And of course, that is also something we're not told all the time. One of the things we were getting at was kind of the luck of the Maratha kings and just the general luck that we had in terms of how everyone died young is what you mentioned to me. Can you just run us through that again, like in your mind? Because you said Akbar was there. Akbar had the ability to change. Akbar had the ability to evolve.
And he lasted long.
And Akbar had the ability to set in systems.
The first book in the Dhruv Tara thing is essentially Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian History Quiz. That's the first book. I'm just introducing some stuff. But the next book that's planned is Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian Resistance. Okay, it's a resistance of the last 1,000 years. And I'll come to your thing of our bad luck through this. The way the last 1,000 years have been presented to us is just a series of repeated defeats. Okay, this invader came, he beat us. Then the next invader came and then he beat us. It was all battles in Panipat which we keep losing, right? And the thing that struck me when I was in school, that if we were losing every battle, why the hell are we still alive? Yeah? We should be dead. It's been 1,000 years. It's a long time. Why are we still alive, right? Because the same invaders who came here, the Turks, And then after that, the Europeans, Portuguese, British,
Yeah.
Dutch, they went to practically every other corner of the world. Okay. And in practically every other corner of the world, they wiped out the indigenous cultures.
There are no cultures.
They're all wiped out,
Yeah.
right? What is Turkey today was actually Greek.
Correct.
It was actually Anatolian, Hellenic Anatolia.
Yeah.
The Turks were originally from Central Asia, from the steppe lands. They conquered what is today's Turkey, killed all the men, took over the women, made it Turkey, right? You'll struggle to find Hellenic influence in Turkey now, right?
Yeah.
Look at Central America, completely wiped out. Native Americans, completely wiped out. Europeans,
Yeah.
right? This is the story across the world.
Australia.
Everywhere, Africa, wherever they went, right? Egypt, wherever they went, native cultures are all wiped out. Okay? And native cultures were really great. The Incas, Aztecs were really great cultures, right? Hellenic, Pharaonic Egypt, all great cultures. Zoroastrian Persia,
Mesopotamia,
great culture,
yeah.
wiped out. We are still here 1,000 years later. So the way I see it, same set of facts. Yes, we lost battles for 1,000 years. We are alive because for 1,000 years we kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. See, indigenous cultures get wiped out when they actually surrender. There are descendants of Greeks in Turkey today. They don't think of themselves as Greek, they think of themselves as Turks, right? You go to
Egypt, Iran.
Egypt, Iran. Like I said, Egyptians, they didn't even know their ancient names, man. Egyptians, descendants, actual genetic descendants. Because there came a time where they just gave up. It was just too much blood. They just surrendered. Our ancestors never surrendered. There's this American historian called Will Durant,
Okay.
who said that the foreign invasions of India, the Turkic and the Europeans, were probably the bloodiest in human history.
Yeah.
Okay? But our ancestors kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. So the story of the last 1,000 years, in my mind, is not a story of repeated defeats. It is a story of the greatest resistance in human history. Okay? We are not descendants of weak, cowardly people.
Yeah.
We are descendants of the toughest around. The only ones among the ancients who never surrendered. We are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive.
That survives. And
as
we
I've
have the
said-
links.
And as we still remember our name, we still remember our traditions. We are still who we
Our
are,
festivals.
who we were, right? And I've said this often. किसी ने हमारे संस्कृति को हमें खैरात में नहीं दी है. हमारे पूर्वजों ने खून बहाकर उसे बचाया है. We should know this story. We should, like, our back should be straight, our shoulders should be back. We are the toughest around. Everyone else surrendered. Every other pre-Bronze Age culture, when these invaders came, they surrendered. And the sad part, when you look through the last 1,000 years, okay, because we have to learn our lessons, the battles we lost, why did we lose? Okay, an obvious thing, lack of unity. Okay?
I think that
happened very often, and we'll talk on that.
Yeah.
But a second thing was just sheer bad luck, man. Okay, and it was almost like the gods were against us, they were testing us. So we spoke about the Marathas. So many of the Marathas, our great leaders, kept dying early. Okay, Chhatrapati Shivaji died early. Chhatrapati Shambhaji Maharaj, he died early, but okay, he was lack of internal unity. Our own gave him up. But Chhatrapati Rajaram, he died early. Okay, Peshwa Bajirao, among the greatest generals ever, died early. Peshwa Madhav Rao died early. Not just that, go back 200 years. Okay, if that stray arrow
doesn't hit,
had not hit King Hemchandra, which our colonial history, very mischievously calls him Hemu, like a
no.
Hemu. He's Raja Hemchandra.
Yeah.
That was his actual name. Stray arrow hits him. He was on the verge of winning.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was a brilliant administrator till then. He'd actually built a wealthy kingdom. History would have been different. Stray arrow hits him. What the hell, man? Okay, this happened repeatedly to us. It's almost like the gods were against us.
It feels to me in many ways that civilization tends to be cyclical.
Yeah.
And so, there was a time India was on the top and we were a percentage of the world GDP and hope,
By far the wealthiest.
Yeah, and we should get there again.
That's not WhatsApp University Gyan, by the way. Angus Madison data. It'll be there in my book.
No, I think that's very clear.
Yeah. We were by far the wealthiest.
And it's also very clear, it took 1,000 years. We were that rich, it took 1,000. I mean, I think there's enough data that the ancient Romans, talking of trade wars, the imbalance.
Emperor Vespasian,
they were
in the second or third century, had tried to ban trade with India.
Correct.
Because Rome was going bankrupt, importing things from India.
That we made. Our
that
artisans, that we manufactured.
Okay? And we weren't buying anything from them. So they were going bankrupt, paying us in silver and gold. The largest hoards of Roman silver and gold coins outside the Roman Empire is in India.
And not only
centuries of trade
and
surpluses.
not only that seems to be one of the reasons why what was considered one of the most strongest currencies started getting debased, which was Roman gold. Is because they just couldn't get enough spices and textiles and the stuff we manufactured.
And metals. We were the finest metallurgists of the ancient world.
And so that's, to me, what you define as bad luck, I've almost in my head thought of as the cycles of life, countries, but I think we're the only ones that managed to maintain culture.
Yeah.
And so it may be that in 1,000 years, Iran is Mesopotamia and Iraq and Baghdad and Iran are back, or it may be the States is back, or maybe Europe is back, or India. But I don't think anybody would be similar in culture. But if India was to come back 50, 100, 150 years from now, our cultures would be connected to when we were last the preeminent country in the world.
If a Persian from 1500 years ago time travels to Persia today, he won't recognize it.
At all.
A Roman from 2000 years ago comes to Rome today, won't recognize it. An Indian comes down from 2000 or 1500, he would recognize it. He would chant hymns that we would know.
Correct.
Right? He would use the same terms.
Yeah.
Right?
Pray to the same deities, have some of the same.
I believe that the strength of a civilization is not about how you behave in the good times. Okay? It's can you get through the tough times to come back to the inevitable rise once again. It's true of a human life as well. When we are in good times,
relationships, friendships.
And often, we can lose ourselves at that time. That's a risk. But it's only when you get hit that you actually discover what you're made of. That I read this line somewhere. That it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and still keep going. That is the strength of India. Every culture will go on a downturn.
Correct.
Most other cultures died in that downturn. We are still here.
And when it comes to sort of worshipping the fire, preserving the fire, because you've studied history, and I've always felt that it, doesn't repeat, it rhymes, sort of a very famous line. How do we modernize the fire, so to speak? How do we, as a student of history, and I love the combination personally of the history and mythology. People who I think appreciate mythology far better students of history, because I think those stories come from somewhere. I don't think they're purely imaginative.
There's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
Do you know the ship of Theseus story?
Yeah.
Viewers, in case you don't know, there was this Greek legend.
Correct. No, I would love to get into that.
There was a ship of Theseus, which was essentially kind of lying in port.
Yeah.
And over time, one plank, if it rotted, would get, in those days they had wooden ships.
Yeah.
So one plank, if it rotted, they would just replace that one plank.
Correct.
And there came a time over many decades that every single plank had been replaced.
Yeah.
Right? And the question arises, is it still the ship of Theseus? Or is it a completely new ship? Right? If you think about it, how do you preserve fire? It's in a way the same challenge, right? Our ancestors lit a fire, right? As did the ancestors of the Greeks and the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians, right? And the Anatolians, all of them, Central Americans, Celts, all of them. Those fires are now ashes, and those people today have lit new fires. Our fire is still alive. Why is it still alive? Because our ancestors used a certain set of firewood. But if we have to keep a fire alive, what do we have to do?
Add to it.
We have to add our own firewood, right? We can't say, no. We have to stick to the firewood that our ancestors used. But that has been burnt already. We have to add our own firewood. But we have to keep the flame alive. We have to ensure that flame doesn't die out, right? So if you think about it, if metaphorically, that's actually what we have to do with our culture. There is a line of traditions. There are stories that have come down from ancient times, right? The Ramayana was composed many thousands of years ago. The first person to write it down was Maharishi Valmiki.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, every few centuries, every few decades, someone else would come, take that story and add in their own firewood, right? And make a few changes to it. And made it fresh for a new age, for a new region.
Yeah.
Like Kamban did for, in the Kamban Ramayana, the Tamil version. Like Goswami Tulsidas ji did in the Ramcharitmanas, which is a recent this thing, 400 years ago, right? So like the Lakshman Rekha is not there in the original Valmiki Ramayana. Actually emerges in the Ramcharitmanas, which is only 400 years ago, which in the Indian frame of mind is recent,
nothing,
right? So if you think about it, what did our ancestors keep doing? The fire is still there. There's respect for the fire. They've added in fresh firewood. What that does gives strength to the flame once again, right? That's what we have to keep doing. We have to respect the flame, but add in something of the new. So the way I see it, for example, in today's day, we should all try our best to learn Sanskrit. Okay. But in case someone has not learned Sanskrit, it's okay. Say it in English, say it in Hindi. At least they should know the essence of what's in there. Our kids should know our traditional bhajans, okay, and our traditional hymns. But in case they don't want to hear that, fine, do bhajan clubbing. Make it modern, but at least they should feel connected, right? That's what our ancestors did repeatedly. They kind of modernized and refreshed our traditions again and again and again, while still keeping the respect for the ancient. We have to keep doing that.
I also think, I fully agree with what you said, and I've always felt one of the missing links is a pride in and a willingness to question stuff that we feel is right, but everyone else feels is wrong, just because it's different, right? So eating with your hands, or which is like the simplest one, or being vegetarian, or eating. I mean, you can be non-vegetarian, but I'm just saying some of the basic cultural stuff that we take hits on, we've been willing to take hits on, and almost questioning ourselves on. So that I feel like that rebuilding of pride, and it can go into jingoism, and it has its negatives.
Yeah, it shouldn't go into the negative territory. And at the same time, question things that deserve questioning.
Correct.
Like I question casteism very strongly. I've been doing it for 15 years.
In many ways,
and it should be questioned.
In many ways, I believe that's our original sin.
Yeah. So, and there are other things that you want to question. Right? So question. But that doesn't mean that we are burning everything down.
And we don't have to be perfect. That's kind of the advantage of questioning and trying to improve things. But at the same time, you got to respect. And I feel like it's the same with a country like America, right? Like it's some of the things they've given are great, some of the things that aren't, and you kind of figure out what's great about something and you kind of build on that.
But if you focus only on the negatives,
it's a problem.
Then that's a problem. Like if you think the description of a culture is a list of all the negatives of that culture, then you're bigoted. Okay, because every culture has some strengths and some areas of improvement.
And especially if you're from that culture.
Exactly.
I think if you fail to understand the value of what you brought in, so something as simple as ahimsa, or something as simple as living one with nature.
Correct. Respect for Mother Nature. Ahimsa, there's always, I mean, we had ahimsa paramo dharma, but we also had the philosophy of dharma ahimsa tathaivacha, that we'll defend ourselves if we have to, right? So, but the point is that keep the traditions alive, reform what needs reforming, and feel a sense of pride and connectedness to our ancestors. And which is why the stories, the history, our culture, our music, it's so important, because that's that is actually a measure of who we are.
Can I ask you why you think it's worth saving? Can I get into the passion with which we can all say we should save
because I was born into it is great.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna. And it's a conversation I enjoy having, and so I wanna, since I have the chance to have it with you, why do you think our culture is worth saving?
Good question. What if I was not Indian? Would I still think this culture is worth saving?
Just saving something for the sake of saving it.
Just because you're born into it.
I think people just say that, but I don't think that creates kind of the energy.
Because...
And I'll give you my answer, but I would love to hear yours.
Because if my only defense for my culture is I was born here.
Yeah.
Well, then, then someone else can say, well, I was born in that culture. And right? Why is our culture worth saving?
Yeah.
Few things in my mind. One, I've been an India boy all my life. Practically. I've lived here all my life, practically all of my life. But I lived in the UK for some 4.5 years.
Okay.
I was an Indian government diplomat.
I know. I was part of some of the interesting angles of your life.
So I was there for some 4.5 years. The only time I lived abroad.
Okay.
Right? So I've traveled a great deal, but I've always been an India boy. A thing it's only, you actually understand a foreign culture only when you truly live there. Just traveling there is...
It's not the same.
It's not the same. Right? Also, London is such an international city that you get to meet so many other different cultures. Culturally, the West has a lot of problems today, no doubt. Families are breaking up, communities are breaking up. There's an epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah.
There are actually deaths of loneliness. They're in population collapse. And I think a lot of that has happened because there was a reaction against the excessive conservatism of 100 years ago.
Okay.
Right? That family structures, community structures were so strict that there was this cult of individualism. Burn all traditions down because I want my liberalism, I want my freedom, right? So yes, so they did get the goodies of liberalism, individual freedom,
free speech,
LGBT rights, free speech, women's rights, all very good. But there's a downside to it, right? Crime, chaos, loneliness. You'll be shocked how much violent crime there is in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, on a per capita basis, India has far lower violent
with
crime.
far higher income inequality.
Yeah, right. And with a system that doesn't work, man, our judiciary system, police system, God, they're all undermined. It's basically the people aren't that violent here, right? All that has happened because of excessive individualism. So they've gone completely on the other extreme. But you see countries of the Middle East, they're on the other extreme. Community structures are strong, family structures are strong, which means there's stability, but no women's rights, no LGBT rights. In fact, many of those countries legally prescribe the death penalty for gays and lesbians, legally.
Even something as like
that's a law,
something that we disagree with, like slavery.
Yeah, slavery was legal, man, till like 10 years ago in many of these
even
countries.
Some of the
women can't leave home without a male protector, right? If in some of those countries, if a woman gets and there aren't 4 male witnesses, and she has filed a, she will not be believed, and she'll be punished for adultery. And like the question that rises in your mind, a woman is getting raped, 4 men are just standing and looking.
Which is in many ways more problematic.
But this is the law.
Correct.
Okay, now, so this is one extreme, traditions, community, but so conservative. And the West, another extreme, liberalism, all good. LGBT rights, women rights, all good. Full chaos, loneliness, violence, right? I don't wear a ring or a gold chain when I was in the UK. In India, I can wear it peacefully. I know nothing will happen. Okay. In the UK, no, I won't.
Watch.
Right, watch. I won't wear it in the UK. Right? You have both these two extremes. India gives you the best of both worlds. You can be traditional and liberal at the same time because our traditions are liberal. You can be traditional and community oriented, but our traditions respect LGBT rights. our traditions respect women's rights. When I speak for women's rights in my book, some of my books have shown gay relationships, right? In some of my books, I've shown Sita Ma as a warrior, as a prime minister, right? I can show women's rights.
Correct.
It's not controversial in India because our traditions are liberal.
Yeah.
Which means you can be traditional and liberal at the same time. Only Indian culture gives you that, right? You can be rooted and you can soar at the same time. Only Indian culture gives you that. If a culture has lasted so long, it means it's anti-fragile. There must be something good in it. And you find in so many Western countries a little bit of problems. All their liberalism is dying out. All their racism is reviving once again. We face problems for 1,000 years. We are still liberal, relatively.
Yeah.
Correct? We got free in 1947. We didn't say we want vengeance against our historical oppressors. We said we will be liberal, we will be secular.
In fact, a lot of the
There's a lot of beauty in our culture. It's worth
lack
protecting.
of liberalism actually comes from assimilation, which is another interesting discussion. We've kind of assimilated with cultures that were not as liberal as ours, and we've taken some of that, we've added some of that, and so
And we have mutual respect.
Yeah.
So there is something truly magical about, I'm not just saying that because I'm an Indian, there's something truly magical in our culture with complete respect for other cultures as well, to each their own, right? But I think this
correct. I don't think that discussion here is why our culture is better.
Protecting.
Correct.
It's worth protecting.
That was my question.
Worth keeping the flame alive.
My question was never why we're better than other culture. It was just more why we should preserve our culture.
I can be completely, deeply rooted, proudly Indian and still wear jeans and a shirt. I can sing the Tandav Stotram. I released a song recently, a Tandav Stotram, which Ravan had written in honor of Lord Shiva. Proper Sanskrit hymn, thousands of years old, in modern rock music, okay? And it does well in India. This is the beauty of India.
And what you said is another very interesting point of how we treat. I'm going to tell you why I think culture is worth saving, and then I'm going to build on a little bit of what you said about the greatness of where we are. Ravan is in many ways the villain of one of our epics. And we accept that he is one of the greatest Shiv Bhakts there was. I think that's rare.
Yeah.
I think
we understand nuance. Again, this is not taught to us in our history.
Correct. I think that's so rare. I'm Jain, and sort of because of Ravan's bhakti, because of how karma works, I think Jainism is very clear as to both his weaknesses and his greatness. And we were taught very early that these were the phenomenal things Ravan did, and this is the benefit his bhakti is going to provide him in his next lives. Right. But he also did this.
Because everything is complicated.
Correct.
Life is complicated.
So I'm going to tell you two things. I'm going to build on what you said about Indian culture. I believe, and I know this is a little controversial, but I have believed for the longest time, adjusted for scale, so let's say countries with a 50, 70, 100 million population, large size, I don't think any democracy has come close to what we've pulled off in the last 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
I believe we're the most successful democracy of all time.
We became democratic before we became rich. Remember, US was not fully democratic. Only male property holders
I was just going
to
to say, well, actually, it gets worse than that because it's male property holders, then it's all white people, then it's colored people, and then it's women, or then it's women, and then it's colored people. So the actual practical democracy, and also it's really hard to vote now, and if you get into America. So the actual practical democracy of America started actually, I think, after 47. And they started with just not as many people as us. And a lot of their early laws were built around rich people because only they voted. Europe is interesting because they're smaller and a lot of their wealth came from non-democratic means. So a lot of the wealth came from China, India, Africa. And then it's kind of very nice. So it was democratic again in the similar sense as America was, which is the rich people voted on the laws that governed us. And so a lot of the wealth came from India, but a lot of the laws happened in the UK. So it wasn't really democratic.
And it evolved over time.
But my fundamental contention is that the population of the UK was, let's say, 1 billion people, because it could not have, it had to have included us and the Africans and the Chinese, because we were funding their expansion, but no one asked us anything. So if you look at taxation without representation, and if you don't have representation for most of the people earning the money, is it really a democracy?
And that's something to do with our culture. Let me tell you another interesting fact, right? And there's another thing that I actually want to write a book on. It'll probably come maybe in the Dhruv Tara series. Indians were taken as practically slaves across the world, right? That indentured labor that the British did was basically slavery with British characteristics. Okay, because Indians who were taken to the Caribbean islands, to Fiji, to South Africa, everywhere, got apparently some 40 or 50 rupees over their entire life. Okay.
Even adjusted for inflation.
That's slavery.
Correct.
That's slavery. Okay. They were taken there, they lived in the slave quarters. Okay. They were overseen by the overseers who used to whip.
Correct.
And Indians were taken across the world this way. Indians were also, they also went as immigrants to many lands across the world. There were some Indians who suffered ethnic cleansing, like in Uganda. They had some 3 months. They had to run away in the 1970s. Many of them went to the UK.
The country collapsed.
But Indians across the world, you see across the world, right? Wherever Indians went, jump forward 100, 150 years, Indians are right in every single place.
But there's one more.
Right at the top.
And there's one more interesting, that's where we'll come to culture. I'm going to break you for a second.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not a DNA thing.
Exactly. Because they went right to the top economically and educationally.
But I'm going to say,
but the Pakistanis did not get there.
Yeah, correct. So it's not a DNA thing.
Same DNA as us.
Yes.
But the Pakistanis did not get there. It's not a religion thing, because Indian Muslims are also right at the top.
It's a cultural thing.
Okay. So it's bizarre. Pakistanis don't make it. Indian Muslims are right at the top. Okay. In every single country, South Africa, Malaysia, UK,
almost
Caribbean
to the
Islands,
frustration
Fiji,
of the local population.
Everywhere.
Mauritius.
Right. And this is not true of anyone else, usually, of people who went as immigrants or as slaves. Okay. There is something in the, if it's happened across every single land, it's not a coincidence, man. There's something in the culture, right?
And so
which needs to be analyzed and learned.
My answer to my own question, I will indulge myself a little bit, but I'll just finish the earlier point. So this topic fascinates me about democracies, and I'm not a negative person. So when there's a lot of criticism or anything, I feel like context is critical. The only democracy that I think is done a phenomenal job building its people up without, and the Chinese may disagree, but without sort of a lot of colonization is Japan post World War II. And I think Japan has the advantage of complete homogeneity. No differences anywhere. Even within religion, but even just within culture, right? And so, I don't think anybody kind of understands what we've pulled off in the last 100 years. Are we perfect? Of course. I think you and I could spend another 4 hours purely on improvements.
But there are many beautiful things about India. Our kids need to know this.
Correct. And also, you can't improve unless you understand that you do things well. Because otherwise, it's just constant stream of negativity.
If you just think you're a doormat, then you're just looking to escape.
Which is part of the reason I think the education books originally made us think that.
Yeah.
So that the rise doesn't
They wanted to create slaves.
The other interesting thing, I think, of why our culture is worth saving is because, and it's a little out there, I think this is the culture, this is the belief system that will give us the ultimate answers quickest. And so in a more esoteric way, if you really, just something very simple, and I've heard you say this on the podcast, right? Like, it's a concept, since my dad explained it to me, it's always fascinated me. Everything that starts has an end.
Everything that has a beginning has an
end. And that's Maya.
Is there in the Gita.
And so the Jain philosophy believes of the universe, it never started and therefore it will never end. And it's cyclical. And it turns out we're actually pretty bang on from a physics standpoint. And so there is, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, whatever, I think everybody comes with questions. And I think at somewhere along the line, you're like, these questions are too hard, or these questions don't help me in my day-to-day, so I am going to put these questions at the back of the mind. But I think the ultimate questions of why are we here, what is the purpose of all of this, I think the answers come quickest from this culture and this way of thinking, because I think our ancestors spent an incredible amount of time trying to answer those questions. And I haven't found too many other cultures that have tried to answer those questions for that many years. So I think yoga is a means to that. I think, like I said, the thoughts on yugs and universes and
and cyclical. Our perspective.
I mean, for Brahma to say there are millions of Brahmas, or there are infinite Brahmas, or for Narad or for Narayan to then say that I am the observer. And there are hundreds of Mahabharats, and there are infinite Mahabharats, and they all end differently, and they all end similarly. I think that level of detail, I think that level of thought onto the physics of the universe, the actual Paramanu, so to speak, hasn't happened from many other cultures.
Let me tell you two interesting things on this. One is on Paramanu. If you read the Bhagavad, and there are various texts which speak of a concept of time.
Correct.
So there is, of course, the Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, Kali Yug. There's the descending and then the ascending. You know, Kali Yug, Dwapar Yug, Treta Yug, Satyug. And this occurs at the human level, the level of the Devas,
year of Brahma. The year of Brahma, not even
Vishnu, Shiva. That's. And at the human level, one entire cycle, the descending and the ascending, comes close to around 26,000 years, which is exactly the amount of time of one cycle of Earth's precession. You know, the Earth actually wobbles a bit, right? It revolves, it rotates.
On the axis.
Like a top, it also wobbles a bit. And it comes back to its original position after one wobble. It's called precession after 26,000 years. It matches this cycle. I mean, another interesting thing in the Bhagavad, there is Anu and Paramanu, right? That actually begins as a description of time. And then it says at the smallest level, time and space are the same thing. Which is why nuclear power in Hindi is called Paramanu. Right? So our ancestors got at the smallest level, time and space are the same thing. This quantum, man. Okay.
No, it just, that's what I'm saying. Those answers derive from this culture.
But the problem is, we don't teach this to our kids.
Also, and
sorry, just one thing. There are things that need to be updated. There are things our ancestors got wrong as well. Of course, right? So, for example, according to our calendar, what is the winter solstice right now is actually erroneous because of precession. And we are still sticking to the calendar as it was designed 2000 years ago. So we haven't updated it, right? So there are things we need to correct as well.
We also lost a lot of knowledge.
We lost a lot. So many of our universities
are Nalanda, the burning of the books.
We need to train our kids.
That's what I'm saying, to understand. So like the culture that made its people ask these questions.
That's the thing I love most. We weren't told, you're a stupid kid. I am your father, your Lord, and you will do what I tell you to do. In fact, we were told by our gods that it's your job to question and question the gods as well. As Lord Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, that I have given you knowledge most profound. Your job is to think about it and then do what you think is right. Imagine Lord Krishna is essentially telling us, we're the Arjuns. Do what you think is right and then live with the consequences. It's not that you're a kid and then follow these commandments because you're a kid.
Your karma and your ultimate results of that could be different on the same action.
Because you're a grown-up. Our religion, all the dharmic approach to life, they treat us like adults, not like kids. You're a grown-up. The gods are training you, giving you knowledge. Then you're a grown-up, make your own decisions and then live with the consequences. You're not a kid who has to be told what to do.
So to me, that is always fascinating. And that,
I'd much rather be an adult and take charge,
Correct.
rather than be a kid. Oh, I will do what you tell me to do. No.
and Jain kind of philosophy, when I was talking to my dad, and I think the philosophy is a little bit of the same, or a lot of the same, has always been a lot of what is happening to you is your doing.
Yeah.
We're not actually here to fix it. The gods aren't benevolent or evil.
Yeah.
They're more teachers.
Yeah.
And you need to figure your stuff out.
Stuff out yourself.
That to me is why we save it. Because that is the ultimate, I think.
And that is so deeply beautiful. It's like another thing which I love in our tradition, Anekantavad, which comes from Jainism, and Rig Veda, Hinduism, has the same approach, Ekam Sat Vipravoda Vadanti, which is respect for multiple truths.
Correct.
There is no one truth which everyone has to follow.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all different. We can find multiple truths, and it's okay, man.
And multiple nirvana. So to get to nirvana, or to get to moksha, there's multiple paths.
Yeah.
Again, I find that absolutely
And you have a right to your path, I have a right to mine.
So it could be bhakti, it can be sadhana,
it can be gyan,
it can be
karma.
And all of that gets you kind of to that point.
Yeah.
All of that felt and does to me today just natural, so natural, and deeply natural.
Yeah. The problem is our education system teaches nothing of this. Right?
Because I don't think it
to
has
our
pride
kids.
in
I was lucky, I learned it from my family. My grandfather was a
I
Pandit
learned
in
it from my
Vishwanath
dad.
ji. You're lucky you're learning
Yeah.
it from your dad. What happens to many other kids where the families are not teaching them?
And that's
Then what
my
happens?
that's my point. I think until you have pride in the genius that is this culture.
Yeah.
Without and the culture never expected you to denigrate anybody else.
No.
But without understanding why what we're doing, I mean, for it to require Oppenheimer to read the Bhagavad Gita and popularize what Shiv said, just seems to be such a failure of education, such a failure of kind of the beauty of where we're from.
True. And among the things that struck me after Oppenheimer, there's so many I met in India, because Oppenheimer didn't translate the line from the Bhagavad Gita. It was partially right, it wasn't completely right, because he read it as I am become death, the destroyer of world. That's not what the Lord said. It was actually Kal, right? It can be used to mean death, but it can also be used to
Phoenix.
mean time.
I think it meant more phoenix.
And time
Yeah.
is the ultimate destroyer of worlds, but it's also the ultimate creator of worlds, right? That was the true meaning. And you can't expect Oppenheimer to know that. He's a Western.
I mean, even if he
So
did
many
know
of
that,
them-
I think what he created was so profoundly
profound.
dangerous.
And he understood it from his perspective, and I respect him and so many others like him who learned from the Upanishads, who learned from the various Gitas, not just the Bhagavad Gita. But so many Indians, when the movie came out, thought Oppenheimer's translation was the correct one.
My contention is
Yeah.
for Oppenheimer, it was
That
correct.
was sad. But
Because he doesn't have the ability to recreate.
But
He
this
only
is
destroyed.
our culture. We should know
But our
this,
culture speaks of
Yeah.
the cycles, the
Yeah.
recreation of. I mean, I find it unbelievably upsetting. It just bugs the daylights out of me that there are aspects of the conversation with Krishna and Arjun that are just deep
So deep.
at a level that science today would find fascinating.
Yeah.
Multiple universes, the concept of time, the idea of good and bad, the idea of fighting against your family.
Yeah.
That is not multiple classes and courses in a university. That is not at least one class every year up to, because, it's almost, and I was telling you about democracies, and one of the things everyone appreciates about Japan is how they behave, how they treat everyone, and there are pros and cons of Japanese culture. I think the drinking culture and the loneliness and the
Biases against barbarians.
Yeah. But I think they treat their civic sense, they treat the stuff they think is important as stuff worth learning from when you are one up to you are there. And I think our culture is worth learning.
Our education system is designed कि पढ़ा लिखा के बच्चे को अंग्रेज बना दो. Like गलती से हमारे संस्कृति के बारे में कुछ मत सिखाओ.
And I'm not even talking about the history of the Sanskriti. What I'm talking about is the actual
depth of it.
essence.
Yeah, the essence
and the
of
depth.
it.
Why can't we have
But
this?
for that, there are multiple steps. You have to learn it in all subjects. Like in medicine, for example, our kids will be taught, it's changed a bit now, but not enough in my opinion, but our kids will be taught about Hippocrates, not Shushruta and Charak. In mathematics, they'll be taught about Euclid, not Bodhayana.
Even
in
when
history, we are taught, oh, we didn't write history, we were an oral culture. Not true, bro. Our ancestors wrote a hell of a lot. We have more manuscripts, ancient manuscripts than the rest of the ancient world combined, but that's not taught to us.
Also, there's a non-zero chance that Pythagoras took it from here.
Yeah.
He was here.
Look,
the Greeks were here.
The Bodhayana's Shilpa Sutra is in any case 200 years prior to Pythagoras.
No, but I'm saying there was visitation.
And the Greeks came here.
They learned.
Orion came here. So many of them came here and they wrote travelogues.
Yeah.
There's probably learned from. There's this great book series called The India They Saw. It's a 4-book series. It's a translation of travelogues of various foreign travelers who came to India from around 2,500 years ago to
now
recent times, relatively recent times, right? 4-book series. I think Binakshi Jain ji and Sandhya Jain, they kind of compiled it. These are the kind of things that need to be taught because it blows your mind what the foreigners thought of our land when they came here 2,000 years ago, because they were like, my God, this is an insanely successful civilization. And I think this is not taught to us in our history.
And because we don't respect the knowledge our ancestors have, so much of it is still left lying. Even the books that have survived.
Yeah.
Even the manuscripts that have survived.
Yeah.
And it's ironic that stuff like the Pythagorean theorem probably had to travel from India to Greece to come back. And what is the stuff that we've missed that hasn't traveled and that has come back? But even just simple stuff like class debates.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of love the way you kind of looked at simple stories from the eyes of Ravan and Ram and Sita. Why can't we have debates on some of the major philosophical discussions arising out of our culture? I think we'll have debates on Homer and we'll have debates on Shakespeare, and I just don't see enough of that coming from our culture on what the Mahabharata is today.
It was there in ancient times, but today.
Like, we spend way more time on Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar than we do on the Mahabharata or the Ramayana and all the books in between. And to me, the depth of the characters, the depth of the moral dilemmas, the solutions. Just a character as fascinating as Karn, who's one of my favorites. I would have loved to spend as much time on those books and those characters, even devoid of their divinity, as I did honestly on Mark Antony.
And even, in the relatively recent history, so for example, if Julius Caesar is taught to us, why not the plays of Kalidasa?
That's what I'm saying.
Or Bhasa. Why not, so many Indian girls grow up thinking that our traditional culture did not respect women. They would know different if they were actually taught history and shown how many of our own rulers were actually women who ruled in their own name. It wasn't so common in other parts of the world. And I'm not just talking about Razia Sultan, who's one example, who lived for just 2-3 years. Okay, Rani Prabhavati Gupta, for example, a Vakataka ruler who lived 2,300 years ago, who ruled a massive empire, ruled in her own name. Rani Rudrama Devi of the Kakadiyas ruled a massive kingdom, used to lead her armies into battle. And it was a Shudra dynasty, by the way. Okay, we had women who wrote hymns into the Rig Veda, right? Now, the Rig Veda is essentially, in our oldest scripture, it has hymns written by rishis and rishikas, right? Rishis are sort of the equivalents, not exactly, but sort of the equivalents of the prophets of the Middle Eastern religion, because they communicated with the divine and translated it for ordinary people like us.
But because of our religion, they never treated it as commandments.
But think about it this way. If we have rishikas whose hymns are there in the Rig Veda, we in effect had the equivalent of women prophets.
Yeah.
Which other religion, which other culture had this, boss? Okay, there are idiots today who say women should not read the scriptures at certain times of the month. If our kids were taught our history, they would answer them, you women wrote our scriptures. Forget about reading it, they wrote our
There
scriptures.
is one Jain Tirthankar who's a
And
woman.
these things that we should know. But this is not taught in our history, so our kids don't know.
And we've almost taken the worst of the assimilation and then stopped at that.
When we speak of LGBT rights, right? Why is, like, one of the names of Lord Krishna is Aila,
Yeah.
okay, which means descendant of Ila. Okay. Question arises, who was Ila?
Sila, yeah.
Right? Ila is considered as one of the key founding members of the Chandravanshi dynasty. Lord Krishna was a Chandravanshi,
Yeah, of course.
lunar dynasty. Okay. Ila was essentially a man who became a woman, okay, and then had children, and then became part man, part woman again. Essentially a transgender.
Yes.
Okay. Considered as one of the founders of the Chandravanshi dynasty, and was considered so important that our land was called Ilavarta, the land of Ila. Okay. Why is this not taught to us? Okay, when you have transgender discussions
Yeah.
today, okay, English has to maul its language to
Correct.
accommodate transgenders. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm an Indian, I get confused on they, them. Is it plural? Is it, okay, because they don't have a
Yeah.
neuter gender. That's not a problem in Sanskrit. We have a Napunsak gender in the
Yeah.
language. We don't have to maul the language, right? Why? Because English, every language shows the culture that it emerged from,
Yeah.
right? English only had a male and female gender. They didn't have respect for transgenders.
Also,
Even more, let me tell you, point out one interesting thing. You've noticed the grammar rule in English. When you write a male god, you notice you write with a capital G.
G, yeah.
What is the grammar rule if you write a goddess? Small g.
Yeah.
That's a grammar rule.
Yeah.
Why? Because their culture was male god, true god. God
Yeah.
is. Whereas in Sanskrit, whether it's a male god or a female goddess, same term, Tvam, no difference, right? These are things that should be taught to us. It's not taught to us
It's not.
because all our education system is completely colonized. It's not been decolonized, and we don't have popular books which is actually bringing our way
And
of
we're
life
not
out.
able to have a discourse devoid of politics
Yeah, sadly.
on what if this is true and what if this is part of the education and what if it is maybe a little bit
Yeah.
overly political
Fantastic.
and you kind of
Yeah.
avoid that.
Yeah, it's like that thing that we had flying vehicles and we flew to Mars.
Yeah.
No, there's no evidence of that. But there's a lot of stuff that there is evidence of, which shows our culture was
But I know
hugely capable.
I know we're pressed for time a little bit, so we're gonna maybe spend a very quick 5 minutes on the flying vehicles because it's fun. Because it's fun. But I think there is enough engineering in India that we have no idea what they were doing. And that is fascinating to me. So if I can't figure out how temples were built, if I can't figure out how certain steel doesn't rust, I think the leap from there to how much of this was true and how much of this was fake is not as insane
Fair
as
point.
it sounds.
Let me tell you the stuff that does sound credible.
Yeah.
And stuff that was there in the World Science Congress, which our kids should be taught.
I'm just going to, for one
Sorry, go
second,
ahead.
so I'm just going to add so that then you can help us. It's just the description of the impact of the weaponry is so precise.
Oh, you're talking about the weapons of mass destruction?
Yeah.
That is...
But the leap from
That
there,
needs
I mean, that description
research.
is
That
so
needs
precise.
research. That needs research. no
And the
doubt.
leap from there to then some of the other claims, to me, is not impossible.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. Were our metallurgical skills top of the line for centuries and thousands of years, and in some cases better than even what we have today? No doubt about it. Okay, so our wood steel, for example, was legendary across the world. We have, like the iron pillar, right, in Delhi, we have iron that doesn't rust in 2000 years. That should be impossible, right? So on metallurgy, man, we had skills that was beyond thinking, right? On navigation and astronomy, like the fact that our ancestors figured out things like precession, figured out things like the pole star was
I mean, it was more than that.
amazing.
Sugriev's
right?
atlas is...
The astronomy skills were fascinating, right? Our boat building skills, many things that we don't know, were out of this world, right? So many other things. Silk was, there's a school of thought, silk was probably invented here, not in China.
The Trishul on the,
right?
on the mountains in South America.
Yeah, I've read of that. That needs research. But like our techniques of working with stone, we somehow figured out, like stone that is so straight that it's almost impossible to believe that it was carved.
Of one stone.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know
those,
how they
those
figured that out.
temples are 3D
Right.
printed, practically.
Like the Kailash temple in Ajanta Ellora, it's in Maharashtra.
It's
Those
here.
of you are there, go out there, man. It's an entire massive temple carved out of a cliff. It's as big or probably bigger than the Taj Mahal.
One stone.
Okay, and it's a cliff essentially. You make one mistake in that carving, you can't do anything, right? How the hell did they even, like modern CAD CAM machines can't design
Modern
that
water jets
perfectly.
can't cut that.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. So there are things that are utterly
Inexplicable.
wild,
Yeah.
right? But water management, for example, wild, right? But the only text that at least I've heard of on flying vehicles is the Vimanika Shastra.
Yeah.
There's enough scholarly evidence that Vimanika Shastra, there's doubts
My
about it.
contention is because we don't know the
Because-
age of some of these actual epics.
And that it was based on Mercury and many of those. Look, when I'm writing fiction, okay, when I wrote Ravan, I wrote the
Sure.
Pushpak Viman in Ravan, and I use my research from the Vimanika Shastra in it, right? Why? Because it
It's a
just
book.
looked cool.
Yeah.
And but I make it clear it's a fiction,
Yeah.
right? But has anyone built a flying vehicle based on the Vimanika Shastra and made it fly? Not yet.
Sure.
Okay. I know many, and look, the nature of my work is I engage with a lot of scientists. And I have actually many people in my family who are, I literally have nuclear scientists, rocket scientists in my family. So I've checked with many of them, they're not so sure, but it needs research. But having said that, there were those who believed that our shipbuilding techniques are overhyped. Okay. That we weren't such great shipbuilders. There was this Indian Navy project and driven by a friend of mine. He was also involved in it, Sanjeev Sanyal. He's an author and part of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Because there were people who believed that the way shipbuilding had been described, it would be seaworthy. Why? Because the planks weren't nailed together, they were actually stitched together with rope, and this ship cannot sail. They actually, Indian Navy and this, they actually studied the texts and they built a ship using those traditional techniques. So the wood that was, because remember there are different types of wood that can, there is wood that becomes stronger in water, right?
Yeah.
Our ancestors knew that. It's used in construction as well, in our traditional buildings. You put that in foundation, during the monsoon it actually becomes stronger. Right. So they use that kind of wood and they actually stitched the boat. Okay.
Yeah.
You make holes and then you kind of, the coil rope kind of goes, I don't know the exact technique, but they built that. Then insulation techniques, they built that ship and then they took it out to sea and they sailed from Gujarat to Oman, exactly like how our ancestors had described, and they sailed with the winds. The ship actually sailed all the way, took as much time as our ancestors said it would. Okay, so they proved it. Okay, this is another thing that I'm going to include in one of my subsequent Dhruv Tara books, that our shipbuilding techniques what our ancestors wrote was actually right.
And as we end, kind of the only point I have is that, the book on the Viman's a representation of a much larger knowledge set, I think. Itself could have been an understanding of an understanding of an understanding.
Maybe.
But if they said, use iron that doesn't rust, we would have looked at it like it's fake.
Yeah.
But it's there.
But it's there.
And
Look,
it's just...
How much was lost when the Nalanda library was
We don't
burnt?
know.
When Takshashila was destroyed?
When they were killed.
When, Vikramshila, all our great monks, Pandits, they were all killed by Bhaktiar Khilji, various others. I don't know, man.
We don't know. And the problem is a lot of the places we traded with, like the Alexandria Library and stuff,
they were also
burnt.
destroyed.
So
like I said, the same invaders went at so many places. Yeah.
As we end this conversation, I know, and we've kind of laughed about it, but this is kind of intellectual, and we've discussed how it's important for this kind of knowledge base to get to you from a young age. You had it from your family, I had it from my family. Is that kind of the inspiration for the kids' book? Why are we getting it? And how do we simplify this? How do we make people more curious?
Think about it. I mean, through this entire discussion, what are the problems that we're essentially stating out here? In simple terms, there is so much about our culture, about our history, about our ancestors that we need to know. But the kids don't know. And it's not their fault. No one is teaching it to them. Right? And yes, you could argue that it's in so many subjects, but I would argue the first step always has to be history and culture. Because that's where the interest begins. Then you get into maths, you get into sciences, because we have so many achievements, architecture and so many other places, right? And the problem that's been there is our culture is just like not mentioned at all, right? It's easier to teach the Ramayana and Mahabharata and yoga in British schools than it is in Indian schools, right? You don't, I know because I went to many of those events out there. Out here, it's like, no, you can't be teaching all this.
I mean, we almost treat it like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, this is where culture is learned. And then history as well, because if you don't understand what flame is being passed on to you, you don't understand what you have to do to strengthen that flame and then pass it on, right? If history teaches us a colonized version, that, India never existed as a country and the British created it, which is bullshit, right? Then our kids will think, we are just like America, founding fathers and something new started and the British created India. So they don't think that there's actually a tradition coming down from thousands of years, right? And this is just one example. If kids believe, we were always poor, and it's just WhatsApp university gyan that we were wealthy, then they don't think there's anything from our past that needs saving, right? If we think Vastu Shastra is basically superstition and proper architecture only comes from the West, and our traditions are not taught, then obviously they'll do. No. Why are our textbooks this way? Why don't they teach this history? Because we're still continuing with the colonized version. Our history books haven't been sufficiently decolonized. Secondly, I think an equally big problem, our history books are damn boring, the textbooks, right? So even if you're interested in the subject, it's just so boring that by the 9th, 10th standard, kids are, boss, I've had enough, I want to move on, right? So they don't learn about our past. Now, hopefully the textbooks will be made more interesting and will be decolonized. It will happen when it happens. Maybe there are some improvements that have happened, but I think a lot more has to happen. So I thought that, as Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. Okay. So if I think here's a problem, maybe I should try and create a solution.
Got it.
So the entire idea is to have children's books which speaks about our history, but in a relaxed, fun way. Not as like, these are the list of dates, ratta maro or abhi exam paper pe ulti karo. How do we make it interesting, right? So if you want to learn about how India came up with many of the modern principles of currency, you can either make it a boring chapter or two 11-year-old kids who hate each other, okay, a boy and a girl, because they're both competing to be number one. They hate each other, they're competing with each other, and they're forced together into a quiz.
Got it.
Because they are one team from that school. And through their adventure and the teachers training them, you discover, hey, this is what the coins were like, right? And this is the first minted coin in the world, right? Or this is what Indian architecture was like, or this is, and you learn it through stories, right? So it's a fun book. That's what this is. Dhruv Tara and the Great Indian History Quiz. It's a fun adventure. Think of it like the Secret Seven or Famous Five.
Yeah.
But it's not a mystery. It's actually history that you're learning through it.
Yeah.
And it's the first of a series. You learn various different aspects about India that you should know. Like I said, the Great Indian Resistance, or the fact that India was the trading hub of the ancient world, which we are not taught, right? But you learn it through a fun adventure of two kids who hate each other.
And
that's what this is.
And
one is Dhruv, one is Tara.
And how was your mindset different? Writing for adults versus
for this,
yeah, it just seems to be such a not too many people have transcended
from that
bestseller here and bestseller here, especially if it's educational, right? Like it was interesting, the models of Melua and everything that came forth. How are you kind of changing your mindset in terms of how you write this?
And we haven't launched this yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's going to be a bestseller. Let's see. But
I think passion matters, right?
Yeah, I hope the kids give as much love as their parents did. But I think among the things that you should try and do is not overthink it.
Okay.
Right? So you must have all the research that needs to be done. Right? And remember, I'm presenting this as a book where you can learn history. So all the historical facts are all properly referenced. And there's a long list of references at the back of the book.
Got it.
At the end of the book. So the parents can be assured, every historical fact out there, they're all referenced, they're all accurate, right? But you need to build an adventure around it so the kids don't get bored, right? It's a wrapper for things that we want to convey. Now the thing is, what is the kind of adventure that a kid will like? Okay. Because kids are unforgiving. Unlike parents who will be polite.
Correct.
If they get bored, like if you are having an event with kids, they get bored, they'll start yawning, they'll start walking out, right? So I think the best way to do it is actually to just read children's books, right?
Yeah.
The last time, I'm 51, so the last time I read children's books was 43, 44, 45 years ago. So I read many of them again just to kind of get into the mind frame.
Got it.
Right. And in a way it was a revival of the kind of attitude maybe I had when I was a kid. So there are things where like Dhruv is hyper competitive, but he's a boy, right? So while he's waiting for his teacher, and he and Tara are put into a special thing where teachers come and train them. So something just struck me when they're waiting, and Dhruv is a boy, he's a kid, he's 11 years old. He's in the staff room. So it's not a fixed thing. It is the swivel chair, and he starts swiveling around. Whee! Okay, that's what an 11-year-old kid would do. And girls at that age tend to mature faster, right? So Tara will be like, "What is he doing now?" It's just something which struck me, right? And I've just written these things in because like you have to kind of get into that
zone
and that mind frame. What are the Gen Z terms that they use? Delulu or things like that. I put some of them in, but not overdoing it because like the kid will end up saying that to a teacher and the teacher will react like how I would react. Like, what do you say? I didn't get you. Right? So it's been written like that where you just kind of get into that mind frame. I tested it with, kids in our extended family. They loved it.
Okay, lovely.
So, so I'm hoping it'll work.
I'm
sure the parents will want the kids to read these books, but the kids have to want to as well.
No, and I think it's very important that parents have access to good books. Because that's something as a parent I am constantly on the lookout for. Plus, like you said, because it's research and it's history, in today's times to have history that's apolitical is also rare. And so this is I'm excited. I think by the time this goes out, the book should be out
The
because
book
they're
should
at
be
the
out.
end of July.
You know my attitude, even
Correct.
in my books till now across. I like to showcase the width of India.
Correct.
So people from all communities will be there as characters. All religions will be there. The teachers will be from many religions, many communities, many castes. The students will be from many religions, many communities, many castes. Because I think I try my best to do that. I'm not saying I succeed all the time. You have to try and include as many
And
or
also
as much of the variety of India as you can without making it like a
Benetton ad, but
correct. Benetton ad doesn't work because it's
Correct.
just
it feels forced.
it feels forced. It should
Yeah.
come naturally.
I like I said, I think a lot of our conversation has been cultural, not religious.
Yeah.
Because there is a difference.
Yeah.
And so if you do yoga and you benefit from it, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And the same with the books. If you benefit from the history, like you said, of the culture that built you,
Yeah.
there's some joy to that.
There's some joy to that. And so much of a lot of the poison that we see in India today is also because of a colonized version of history taught
Correct.
to us. Like think about it. In our history books, the British Raj is not called the Christian invasion, the British colonial rule, but the Turkic colonial rule is called the Islamic invasion.
Yeah.
Have you thought about it?
Yeah.
The
I
British
hadn't,
came
but it's a very
The
interesting
British came
point.
up with this formulation to make Hindus and Muslims fight. Right?
Either call both of them religious based
Yeah.
or neither.
Yeah. Because many people today aren't clear, boss, those guys were foreigners.
Yeah.
What we call the Delhi Sultans and Timurid Mughals, they weren't Indian Muslims, boss.
Yeah.
They were foreigners. They didn't look like Ranveer Singh or
Any of
Hrithik
us,
Roshan.
yeah.
They didn't speak Urdu. They were foreigners. Okay? We are very clear about the British.
Yeah.
We are not clear about it's just one example of how colonial,
And we know there was divide and rule.
Yeah.
And we still can't get out of it. They were that good.
I can understand why the British did it because they
Yeah.
wanted to divide.
makes
us.
sense for them.
Why the hell did we continue with it? Yeah,
And we
post
still
1947,
continue, yeah.
and we are still continuing with it.
Yeah.
Okay, these are among the things I question, but not in a, like I'm angry way, but just in a relaxed, like as a part of the story. These are things used to divide us.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been absolutely amazing.